If you were 2-7, you'd be in a bad mood too.
Whoa, he has trouble with the snap, and the ball is free. And he hits the upright again. That's impossible.
Get your mouth shut. Get your mouth shut, jerk.
The Bears' season's going to end on a double doink.
If worms had machine guns, then birds wouldn't be scared of them.
Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Welcome to a Word Hole Media presentation of the Limp Ditkas podcast. I'm Pete.
I'm Ryan. Welcome to the Limp Ditkas podcast. We're just a couple of Chicago pricks united by our hatred of University of Michigan football and the Chicago Bears. This week, we just have another Michigan State victory over Michigan. Another year, another victory for the Spartans. We have moments ago the release of the first college football playoff top 25 of 2021. So we're going to break that down and compare it to our LDP top six, as we like to call it, the Limp Six. We'll talk about Notre Dame a little bit and how they factor into this. We've got some pro football to talk about. We have a Central Michigan Chippewa leading the Dallas Cowboys to victory this week. That's going to be fun to talk about. And we've got some Bears follies to discuss. Unfortunately, we also have the Detroit Lions to discuss as briefly as possible. Those segments are going to get shorter and shorter as we get closer to 0-17 historically. And, of course, we've got PV's upset specials. So let's go ahead and kick this motherfucker off. I'm not sure if you noticed, but my Michigan State Spartans defeated the University of Michigan Wolverines for the 10th time in their last 14 matchups on Saturday. That was a fun one. You and I actually hung out for that game.
We went. It was a roller coaster ride, folks. It wasn't just from the spiciness of the hot wings. It was a roller coaster ride of a game that had taunting about this podcast. That first, Ryan was taunting me on the fact that I had Michigan State as an upset special. Then he was taunting me that I didn't take my own upset special by the end of the game.
Oh, yes.
Yes, but I have to tell you, as a casual observer of the game, it's a crime that was not the primetime game of the week. It was the best college football game by far that week. We tried to it was so good, everyone. I mean, this is the best way to sum it up. It was so good. We couldn't even leave another game on because they were all kind of so lopsided and so unentertaining compared to
later
that
on in the evening?
Later on in the day, as the day progressed, we tried to watch more college football. We ended up turning on the baseball game. I mean, it was everything you could ask for from a matchup that got that sort of attention.
Well, I believe most people did see it because they did set the record for this season for the highest viewed or biggest rating or whatever with 9.3 million viewers.
Wow. For
a noon game or 11 a.m. in the Central Time Zone where we were. The highest viewed game of 2021, and that didn't benefit from prime time or at least the mid-afternoon. So whatever that means, people still found a way to tune in. I busted my ass from 8.3 miles away from Spartan Stadium to over 200 miles away in the western suburbs of Chicago to view it with you and my other asshole friends. We did, of course, have a blast. Thanks for what'd you call them? The popsicle wings? Lollipop wings.
Yeah.
Those are fantastic. We had some Italian beef sandwiches and pizza. It was fantastic. And plenty of free beer, courtesy of our baseball podcast, our fine sponsors over there, Revolution Brewing Company. So thanks again. Free commercial over here on the Limp Ditkas podcast. But the Michigan State-Michigan game was a classic. It got off to a crazy start where Michigan State threw an interception, but they had Michigan pinned deep in their own end, and yet Michigan throws a 93-yard touchdown pass, which I thought was a harbinger of things to come, and it looked that way through about at least 3.5 quarters or 2.5 quarters. Michigan was up at one point 30-14, a 16-point lead with about 5 minutes left in the third quarter, and they fell apart. That's a choke job of all choke jobs, a typical Jim Harbaugh special. Michigan State scored 23 of the next 26 points to go on to a 37-33 victory. Just an incredible comeback, incredible atmosphere at Spartan Stadium. Kind of a shitty weather day there. It was kind of spit and rain most of the second half, just kind of cloudy, overcast, but that did not bring down the fans' mood whatsoever. In fact, there were many post-game, there were many social media posts of couches burning, cars being turned over, as East Lansing has never proven they've known how to celebrate responsibly. But what can you do? It's been 20 years probably. I think every year they burn some couches. So I guess it's not too surprising they did against after they're vanquishing their arch rival Michigan yet again. The big story of the game, of course, was KW3, Kenneth Walker III. Ran for 197 yards and 5 touchdowns.
I mean,
and you and we've been touting his Heisman hopes since week 1, and kind of facetiously and then kind of seriously for a while. And then I kind of backed off a little bit after last week, and, exciting. He doesn't really have that Heisman moment. And that entire game was his Heisman moment, putting up those kind of numbers against what was the number 2 rushing defense in the country. Just completely embarrassing. Huge touchdown runs. Most of his touchdown runs were over 20 yards.
Yeah, they were like, just once he got through the line,
he'd get through the line and there was no secondary. There's no one near him. It was just unreal. I don't know if that was a defensive deficiency or miscalculation or strategic failure on Michigan's part, but whatever it was, Kenneth Walker III is your now nationally recognized Heisman leading athlete. So he was just on the college football playoff special, which I mentioned earlier. He's the one player they interviewed during the hour-long show. So he's legit. So much fun. I was not around many Spartan fans. I was around mainly impartials and some Michigan fans, but I was going crazy. It worked out well for me. I guess if we want to look forward now, Michigan State does face Purdue next week, which doesn't sound like a big deal, except, of course, we always talk about the classic trap game, and this, of course, would be in West Lafayette, which I've actually been to for a Michigan State game about 20 years ago, where they were heavily favored and lost that game. So I am not sleeping on Purdue. Many will. And it seems like you are. I think
Notre Dame beat them.
I think State's only a 2-point favorite on the road there. So that was a little surprising, but they've just got to keep getting work done until they can face Ohio State.
I think it's just because everyone else obviously knows the Big Ten is some powerhouse that I just don't recognize. Because why else would a 5-3 Penn State team still be in the top 25 even? I mean, good freaking Lord.
Well, they're not in the college football top 25, playoff top 25.
No, but they're in. Well, I don't know. I didn't see anything past 6 because I was on my way home.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you don't have to worry about that. We no longer, after this evening, now that the college football playoff top 25 has been released and will be released every Tuesday, we don't have to pay attention to the AP or coaches poll anymore, because those are completely irrelevant, as the only one that matters. But to get into the playoffs,
well, don't they take an average from those though?
They can do anything they want. That's what we've talked about. There's 13 committee members this year, and they get in a room and they just vote however they want. Everyone can have a different agenda. That's like you and I have been doing all season long. I have different criteria than you do, but we have to come up with a consensus at the end of the day for our LDP top 6 or the Limp Six, and they have to do the same. So yeah, a lot of them could look at the AP. I'm sure that helps guide their initial rankings or the coaches poll, but they can look at anything else, and they eventually have to just come up with a consensus. And it's their top 25 is radically different than what the AP or the coaches have this week. So I think we might as well go break that down. Yeah, you were on the road, so you missed a lot of that show tonight, but you saw the top 6.
Yeah.
Of course, Georgia is number 1. That was the easiest pick. I think the whole world knew that Georgia would be number 1. I was shocked that Alabama was number 2, and I guess I shouldn't be, because that's how this playoff committee works. It's always Alabama has to be in it no matter what. And I wouldn't fault them for putting them in the top 6, but to have them number 2 is just ridiculous with a loss, with other worthy undefeated teams out there. I thought that it's just the other part of that is that's gonna work itself out anyway. So I guess I shouldn't be too butthurt about it, but they put 2 SEC teams at the top of the country, and they are going to play each other at some point. I think they have a matchup. They don't play each other in the regular season. They'll play each other in the SEC championship game. So one way or the other, it's going to work out. But beyond that, my Michigan State Spartans were number 3, and that was surprising. I was sure they'd be in the top 6, of course, and maybe number 4, but I was pretty fired up when I saw them at number 3. Of course, if the playoffs started today, the most ridiculous statement in all of sports, if the playoffs started today, Michigan State would be playing Alabama again in the National College semifinal, which did not work out so well back in 2015 or whatever year that was. That was the brutal defeat by the
It has
Tide.
Not worked out for any of our teams on this.
Yeah. Fortunately, the playoffs don't start today, and State might not have to deal with Alabama at all, or they might be out of the playoffs completely. But the other surprising part of their top 6, at least, was Oregon was number 4. And I was surprised to see them there. I did think there was some justice in that Oregon has beaten Ohio State. So they did rank them ahead of Ohio State, who was ranked number 5.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. And Cincinnati, of course, is the non-Power 5 conference team crashing the party at number 6. That is the highest ranking a non-Power 5 team has ever received in the college football playoff rankings. So that they're throwing them a bone there, but to have them, behind Ohio State is kind of,
to have Oklahoma behind Ohio State is ridiculous.
Wow, that's where we get into the rest of the top 10. They did put Michigan number 7 still with a loss.
It's unfucking believable.
Yeah, they moved back like 1 slot basically, because they were ranked 6 in I think both polls last week. So then they have Oklahoma at 8, which I thought was that I couldn't believe when I saw them. Wake Forest is undefeated at number 9. And it's like, if they had the same schedule, won the same games, but their name was Clemson, they would be number 1 in the country right now. So that's what really bugs me with the playoff committee, and especially with putting Alabama number 2 when their resume doesn't warrant it. So that's just another example of how, you could make arguments against Oklahoma, who's looked pretty shaky, even though they're undefeated throughout the season, but they're undefeated, so they should be ahead of 1-loss teams. That's been my philosophy all along. And if they're not good enough, they're going to lose at some point, and then they can drop them back then. But to have them at number 8 right now as an undefeated team, and number 9 Wake Forest, I thought that was ridiculous. I'm not recalling number 10, and I certainly won't be able to recall all of the top 25. But I guess things of note would be the Big Ten does have 3 top 10 teams. SEC has the top 2 teams. Notre Dame. Oh, that's right. Notre Dame was number 10. That's why I shouldn't.
You blocked it out.
Yeah, I blocked it out. So you are getting some respect. I'm not sure that leaves Notre Dame a path yet. That's a bit encouraging, but you're still 6 slots behind making the college football playoffs. So a lot of shit would have to happen, and you don't have very high quality opponents in front of you, as far as I remember. I think you said you had Virginia coming up.
That's the big one on the road. So
Did
we
you?
got Navy this week,
And you took care of North Carolina this past
34
weekend.
to 44.
Did we even watch that
44 to
game?
34.
Did we watch
No,
it? I don't remember watching that
no,
game, but there's a lot of things I don't remember from Saturday.
no. We didn't watch that game. There was a lot of offense for Notre Dame in that game. So that's a good sign. I don't see them losing. So, that will remain. That's the most important part for their path because, well, I mean, I guess what's going to face the college football committee is if Alabama beats Georgia, which is late in the season. What does that do?
They'll both be number 1 and number 2. I mean,
Are they just going to be number 1 and number 2?
yeah, I mean,
but then
that's what is so annoying.
When Georgia, because they are a defense, as we were talking about, is pretty freaking insane. They beat Alabama. Well, then you lose your Alabama chip in that playoff, and what is your decision going to be? So, I would find it ridiculous if there were any unbeaten teams and they did move up someone like Ohio State or Notre Dame or anyone like that into the top 4 with a 2-loss Alabama just because of TV revenues and things like that. Like if Cincinnati is still unbeaten and Alabama gets their second loss, I mean,
yeah, they've got. I think.
How
they'll move them at that point. Yeah, they've got to move them at that point. The question you brought up though is if Georgia loses to Alabama, they're both 1-loss teams. That's where
then they get to just have their, I guess, from the TV revenue standpoint, they just get to sit there and laugh.
Yeah.
We bring this up every week, but that's what it boils down to, and it's something that does help. It helps my team. It helps my team every year. It always has. So. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it doesn't. It's something that does help them. So
I'm just surprised the committee can't see past that because they have no vested interest.
Isn't that why they dissolved the computer system? Because the computer system never took into the Bowl Championship Series ranking computer system couldn't take into effect. They didn't load TV revenue in there, and
it could. They dissolved it because they can make a TV show out of this every Tuesday night for the second half of the season, and it's the most fun thing that college football has done in years. So it's all. You're right. I mean, it comes down to money and it's marketing, and I think it's brilliant, but it is totally meaningless. I mean, this
it's really almost it's like the third version of the AP and coaches poll.
It's making an hour-long TV show about it every week. That's how they did it. These early ones are especially meaningless because they could completely change their thought process, change their votes. They could move teams all around. Just because State's at number 3 this week doesn't mean they have to stay there, even if they win. They could drop down because they thought somebody else had a more impressive performance or whatever. They can make up anything they want. They're not held to any criteria, and every week is its own thing. So the only one that matters is the final one of the season, which determines the final 4. So
yeah.
Well, equally meaningless would be our
I think
own.
This is way more meaningful to me.
Our own.
I make more sense.
6, the Limp 6, as we like to call it. Why don't we hash out our own?
Let's hash it out, Smitty. Let's get dirty.
We could, since we have this stupid podcast, we can correct all these egregious errors that these 13 committee members fucked up. So
I think there's going to be some corrections made, at least on my end.
Correct them. So why don't you go ahead and give me your top 6?
I'll give you my top 6. Georgia, Michigan State.
Wow.
Cincinnati.
Wow.
Alabama. Ooh. Oklahoma and Oregon.
Oklahoma and Oregon. Well, we definitely agree on the top 2. I'm surprised you have Michigan State at number 2, but that's where I had them before they even ranked number 3 by the committee. So I feel like I'm not just being a homer. I'm not jumping them like 10 places above where the rest of the world has them. So we both got Georgia and Michigan State number 1 and number 2. I have Oklahoma at number 3. And then Cincinnati at number 4, and I'm not going to die on my sword for that. So we can move those around as we need to. But I'm still going with my philosophy. Undefeated teams at this point go ahead of teams with one loss. So that's why I've got those top 4. Then I've got Wake Forest at number 5, which is they're not as good as Alabama, but Alabama shouldn't have lost a fucking game. But that's why I'm still including Alabama at number 6. So you had Cincy at number 3 is where we started to differ. I can live with that.
All right. Well, then let's just put Cincy at 3, get Oregon out, and put Wake Forest in.
I'm not willing to fall on my sword for Wake Forest either, because their competition hasn't been great. And you can say that Oregon has like probably the best quality win on the schedule, being on the road at Ohio State. So I would leave them in the top 6 someplace. I guess we got to decide who's number 4.
Okay, yeah, I'm fine with Oklahoma 4 and Alabama 5.
Okay, so then there'd be 4 undefeated teams in the top 4, and then we'd have 1 loss teams in 5 and 6.
Yeah,
I like that because that kind of combines both of our philosophies. Then we're rewarding undefeated teams, but while still acknowledging the top 1 loss team. So that's cool. I like that. So it's
all right. There you go.
Georgia, Michigan State, Cincy, Oklahoma. We've got Bama at 5, and then Oregon at 6.
Yeah.
All right. That graphic made up.
Look at that. I mean,
wow, that was easy.
Yeah. I mean, listen, probably you didn't come into town. I would have watched that MSU game, but I bet after the way the first half kind of went, I probably would have God damn it. And I think we should let's just go back to that game for 1 second.
We can. We will. This is our podcast.
Because I want to talk about something I really focused on why Michigan State was going to win, and that was because Michigan was so one-dimensional, and they totally blew my mind with how aggressive they were in the passing game.
Yeah, I mean, it started the game with a 93-yard touchdown pass.
Which Michigan State was like, what the fuck was that?
It was just a simple crossing route, and they had no concept for.
Yeah, I mean, they were dialed up for a freaking run, as well they should have been. I mean, you don't blame. I mean, you can't blame Mel Tucker, the defensive coordinator, for sending out a defense, thinking they're going to run the ball, and they got burned on in the first play, but yeah, I mean, very surprising, which really kind of was why Michigan State had to climb back into it, because I kind of like shit. I think it was like, they were making adjustments. That's why the second half was so much better, and they played better defensively in the second half because they were really more prepared after their adjustments.
Yeah,
and
Michigan started turning the ball over too.
Yeah, right. And then
big thing. They started getting cute with their 2 quarterback system with JJ McCarthy.
Yeah,
he was fumbling the ball, and then
it turned out like I ultimately thought it would. In
the
Michigan State victory, I had Michigan State getting 38 points. They got 37.
Yeah,
but I had Michigan being held to 17 because of their one-dimensional offense. To quote Pete. So Pete was completely wrong on that, as I talk about myself in the third person. But no, I was completely wrong on that, and they put up 33 points. But I said bet the money line. If you bet either line, you won. So damn me for not getting that in time, because I was scrambling with my wings. So anyway, that's my final word on that. I just wanted to get that in there because I did focus. I thought I'd be remiss if I didn't, give Michigan their due for playing a much. And it should be interesting to see how they play the rest of the season now, since I
thought they looked so much better in that game than they had most of the season. So
it was all a real head scratcher. It was a great game though. So
Classic. Certainly cements Mel Tucker into National Coach of the Year, certainly Big Ten Coach of the Year, as they were picked to finish last in the East this
Yeah,
season.
I mean, and definitely as his last year at Michigan State, of course, as we already know.
Don't
So,
say that.
just kidding. I'm
I
kidding.
think Michigan State can pay him. He's
Oh
already
yeah,
getting
why not?
paid pretty well. So
Yeah,
if
well,
it's money that it's his concern, I think State can pay him. The question is, it is not an easy path to a national championship, although the committee is already recognizing him in his first real chance, putting him at number 3. So maybe the SEC isn't calling the way, doesn't have the siren call that it used to. If
yeah, it's
State can get that
true.
kind of respect nationally immediately. So
I, I was a little surprised that they were top 3, but at the same time, I was kind of like, I didn't have a problem with it. I just thought something would get in their way, you
They
know?
said they interview like the committee chairman for every show, and he can say whatever he wants. And they typically it's actually the Iowa's athletic director this year. I missed his name, but it changes every year who it is. But invariably they come in and tell us what their philosophies are and what how the process works. But it's different every single week. Like they can focus on one thing one week and focus on something else this week. But uh, he mentioned that they had a real tough time. They had no trouble with number one or number 2, which I thought was bizarre that they just automatically put Alabama at number 2, but they struggled with 3 through 9. They didn't know how to switch all those around, like what the best way to put those was. So there's a lot of back and forth and a lot of votes, a lot of different things happening to get that order. So I guess I wouldn't be too surprised, since it was so close, what they're saying for 3 through 9, that it could be completely different next week. Maybe State's not even in it for whatever reason. I think it'd be hard to take them out unless they really struggle or, of course, lose to Purdue. But that's kind of what State's been doing all year. That they've struggled with a lot of kind of mediocre teams, and that's why I wasn't real confident about their chances for this whole season. But I'm just enjoying the ride. So it's hard to say. I mean, if it's that close, maybe they drop down. If Oregon has a huge week, I forget who they're playing, or what would be really annoying is if Ohio State blows somebody else out, they move into the top 4, even with their loss. So it's hard to say. That so far they've done a good job. Um, they haven't ranked teams that have beaten other teams ahead of each other. Like Ohio State was one spot behind Oregon. So there's some
Right.
justice there. There's a couple other examples I'm forgetting. But those, they kept those intact for now. And maybe that's something they can do this week, but it might be harder to do as we get further down the road. So it's going to be fucking fun. That's all I know. It's cool. My school's, my local school, not my alma mater. They're not always involved in this conversation, but they are firmly in the center of it. Notre Dame somehow seems to always be in the middle of it, so that's cool. So this is working out well for this podcast, this college football season.
Do you know who's on this committee this year?
There's 13 people. They said there's a record turnover. There's like 6 new members this year. But I don't know who any of the people are.
Well, the one name that
Willingham, I think, is.
Yeah, Ty Willingham's on it. That's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah, he's
Ty,
been on it a couple times, I think.
has he? Okay. Then randomly, former Nebraska offensive lineman Will Shields is on it. So there you go.
Do you think Willingham would have like a negative impact on Notre Dame's chances because of the way they fucked him over?
Probably not.
Yeah, I don't think didn't seem like a guy that would hold a grudge, but you
No,
just
he
never
doesn't
know. I mean, that's what you.
Yeah,
these are the
sure.
storylines you get with when you have humans involved with their own biases and
I'm happy to see that there's not a lot of. What's weird, there's not a lot of SEC folks on it, but there are 3 Big Ten. 3 of the 10 have Big Ten ties to them, so it's kind of interesting. 3 of the 13, yeah. I was doing math. 3 of the 13 have Big Ten ties, so that's interesting.
There's got to be some SEC representation. I can't believe they had nobody. But we can break. How about we break that down next week? See who's biased for who.
Let's break it down.
We can do that.
So
I think that's all I've got for college this week, unless you had anything else.
No, Notre. I just, we got the tough matchup against Navy this week. So I kid. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, should be a win.
Well, on that note, let's go ahead and take a break here on the Word Hole Media Network.
Word Hole Media.
Major League A-Holes in the Hole podcast, where baseball opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, and most of them stink. Find us at MajorLeagueAholes.com and anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Word Hole Media.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Limp Ditkus podcast. We're going to talk a little Cowboys football now. The Red Hot Cowboys, after their 6th win in a row, their only blemish, a nail biter in Tampa Bay.
Oh, to start the season.
To start the season when we said it before, Greg the Leg was not the leg that night.
You were quite confident they were going to recover right after that game. I remember you're quite confident about the Cowboys every year, so I kind of wrote that off.
Oh, yeah, well, not after the injury last year.
Yeah.
Speaking of injuries, something we thought was nothing to worry about last week. With another thing I was wrong about last week. But we were both. You were like, yeah, it's all precautionary. It seems that way, and oddly enough, it gets even stranger here. So we knew Dak was questionable, and word came out that it was all over Twitter. He was doing his normal warm up before the game.
Oh, wow.
Nothing was wrong. And then, there's shots of him talking with McCarthy and I think the trainer on the sidelines, and they're just, there's little video footage, nod his head, whatever. And then 15, 20 minutes later, it comes out that he's not playing in the game. And
did he injure himself?
No, he didn't. No,
they couldn't decide, and then it was a game time decision.
They thought with the game plan they obviously had in place, because Cooper Rush had been taking snaps with the first team offense throughout the week because of this.
Cooper Rush?
Cooper
Central
Rush.
Michigan Chippewa Cooper Rush?
Yes, Central Michigan Chippewa Cooper Rush, who I believe had 4 snaps in the NFL before that. And
I can't believe he's in the NFL. I didn't think he was that
4 years
good with
in the NFL. I believe originally drafted by the Cowboys, then spent some time with the Giants last year, and was it the Seahawks at some point? He's kind of drifted around after the Cowboys, and ends up back with the Cowboys. And I have to tell you, it was a truly impressive performance, because they really didn't change their playbook. And he had 325 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception for a 92.2 QB rating. Now that's his season QB rating, which would put him about 30 points higher than Justin Fields, whose QB rating is 66.6. So,
ouch.
Just let's put that in perspective, Bears fans. But
well, there is a huge difference between the quality of quarterbacks from Central Michigan and Ohio State. So
yeah, there is, and we all know that.
Case in point, Gary Hogaboom,
who holds. Okay, now so here's what's interesting. I'm so glad you brought up Gary Hogaboom. It's like
was he a former Cowboy?
He is the record holder above Cooper Rush for the most first start yards of a Cowboys performance.
I can't believe we've never. What is it? Sorry.
2 Central Michigan guys were on the Cowboys, and they own the top 2 rookie performances.
I can't believe we've never made this connection before. I've never even thought about this. I forgot that Hogaboom I've known Gary Hogaboom. He was a little bit before my time, but not much. But I forgot that he played for the Cowboys. But
yeah, he was one of those one of those lost years.
So they were bringing up the chips all through the game, probably.
Yeah, they brought it up.
That's awesome.
The thing I found most ridiculous, I just want to bring this up in the for the pregame is, and I know Drew Brees is still getting his legs underneath him, but so Drew Brees before the game said he was going with the Vikings because Kirk Cousins is the 30 in the row he's playing the Cowboys, and he knows their defense. And that made me laugh out loud. And the only reason it made me laugh out loud is because they have a new defensive coordinator running an entirely new defensive scheme. So, dude, what the fuck? Why would that be your reason to pick him? You could have simply said, Dak Prescott is not starting. Cooper Rush has 4 snaps in the NFL or something, or maybe 1 start. I don't even know, it's something very minimal. Like, I'm going with the Vikings at home tonight. But
something tells me he's happy with his whatever 7-figure salary.
Oh no, I know,
without
but it's
doing
just
any
like
research.
Yeah, I
Gets on
hate when
TV,
things.
shit.
These guys should have enough to not say stupid shit like that. Enough information not to say stupid shit like that. It just drives me crazy. It's like we talk about in the other podcast in the national ball games all the time, but usually the pro football games are much better, especially since there's a lot less games and they have to worry about it once a week,
not every night, like in baseball.
And they kind of keep the same teams. I guess it's different on Sunday Night Football, but on the weekly broadcast, you kind of have your crew. So whatever.
Well, like you said, Drew Brees is new. It's his first year in the TV booth, so we'll see how he improves. But yeah, that's a pretty bad one to start out with.
Yeah, and the Cowboys win 26-16, and one of the reasons it was easy for them to win is they really minimized their offensive penalties, which is what really which is really why Dak Prescott got injured to begin with, because he had to throw a touchdown pass in overtime because they were penalized for 115 yards, in that game, on a game they should have won quite easily 3 weeks ago. So anyway, good news out of Dallas, and now he's due to come back this week to face the Broncos. So, kind of like if there was something at all wrong with him, still there's no reason to play him this week.
Yeah,
they're at home against the Broncos, so
it's early. I mean, this is a Tuesday night, so they don't have to really say anything. But I mean, is the prognosis any different for Prescott? Is it? No game time decision, or
no? McCarthy came out. It was on Monday Night Football last night that he's going to be full go by Thursday. They have no doubt.
So if he's not, that's when you start to raise questions. But as long as he's practicing Thursday, then should be Dak back in. So shit. I mean, do you really even need him if you got Cooper Rush back there?
I know. Jeez. I mean, he's better than a first round draft pick in Chicago. And speaking of Chicago, they lost again as predicted here. Although we both thought they'd go 0-4, they went 1-3, but we all know why. Chucky was having some issues back in Las Vegas, but the defense kind of failed again for the Bears. They did have an early first half lead, and then they really failed to score at will in the second half, and the defense ended up letting up 33 points on what looked like a game that they were probably going to win by like 10. And the defense became more and more porous as the game went on, which led to did you have something to say?
Well, we're kind of bearing the lead here because, I mean, Coach Matt Nagy was not present for this game.
I forgot
COVID-19. It was like the world.
Well, the result was so much the same. I didn't even realize he wasn't there.
Yeah, well, it was hilarious because Joe and I were driving in Saturday morning into Chicago and listening to the baseball show on the Score inside the clubhouse. So it's 2 hours dedicated to baseball every week.
Not this week.
They broke in and had like a segment every 15 minutes about the breaking news that Matt Nagy had tested or had not cleared COVID protocols and would not be coaching the game that day. It was just like, who fucking cares? It was not that he was going to help the team. I mean, they were trying to break down then what whoever their bench coach that was taking over, what the effects would be, but it was pretty much the same thing as you could expect with a Matt Nagy coach team, I guess. But I missed the game completely on Sunday because I was traveling back, so I was not affected adversely. So yeah, I have no idea what happened in that game. I just assumed Justin Fields disappointed, and everything else about the Bears was disappointing to their beleaguered fans.
Yeah, and the big narrative out of Chicago this week was now you can't even count on the defense.
Yeah,
and that led me to of made me scratch my head because I didn't remember the defense being very good last year, and my thought process was accurate. They weren't. So,
But they're the monsters of the Midway. I mean,
yeah. Well, have we gotten so delusional? Has sports radio in Chicago become so delusional that they don't realize 1985 has set sail?
that has come and gone.
A long time ago. Well, we're going to be nearing 50 years soon. And, it's like to come out and start saying that, well, the defense was 14th best in football last year. Not terrible, not great, middle of the pack.
Middle of the road. Yeah.
That's mediocrity. Guess what they are this year right now? 14.
Yeah.
So this idea that you used to be able to count on the defense, like 15 years ago. I mean, I think the last good defense they had was actually, I don't remember what year. The year they went to the Super Bowl with dipshit.
Rex
Grossman, Sexy Rexy. They went
Rexman.
Was that I'm not even gonna try to remember, but that was the last time they had
came to the wrong podcast for this week in Bears history. But.
Yeah, right, exactly. Definitely wrong podcast for that. But like that, I mean, so don't. The team is just god awful. Get them out of here. And get a new team into Chicago that hopefully Chicagoans can get behind, and then someone like really.
You mean literally get them out of Chicago into Arlington Heights?
Into Arlington Heights, exactly.
As an expansion team, I like that.
The latest story on that though is, I guess, everyone with their seat license gets screwed on that deal, which I never even thought about.
Never understood personal seat licenses. It's like you buy season tickets, then you have to buy something else beyond that.
It's for, I believe the reason they're going to get screwed is it's actually tied to the stadium, not to the.
Yeah.
To the.
In whatever new stadium there is, it'll have a different number of seats in different areas.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know how that's all going to work out, but. I mean, if you're still a Bears season ticket holder, I don't really have much sympathy for you.
Nor do I. So that's it for the lovable losing Bears. What about your lovable losing Lions?
Well, they're anything but lovable, as the Lions have now gone 0-8 and are well on their way to an 0-17 historic season. Actually, a lot of people, including myself, thought they had a decent shot against the Philadelphia Eagles this week.
I did. They were almost my upset special.
Yeah,
I would have just been wrong on that one too.
Yeah,
but.
It seemed like a reasonable pick, because Philly's been struggling all year. They were going to have to go on the road to the formidable Ford Field, which was eerily quiet, mostly empty. It was a strange scene. Made even stranger because that was a kind of a big day. Chris Spielman, Lions legend, one of my favorite Lions of all time, was inducted into the Lions Pride of the Lions is what they call it. It's essentially the Ring of Honor that other franchises have. They call it Pride of the Lions, which is kind of an oxymoron, but so you'd think there'd be a big crowd for that, but it was pretty sparse. And not only did the fans not show up, the Lions definitely did not show up to that game, because they got their fucking asses kicked by not a good team in the Eagles. Ended up being 44-6, and that was just a late touchdown score for the Lions. I mean, even the most, well, not always positive, but the Dan Campbell comment after the game was that it was a sea of trash, is the way he described the team's performance. So that's got to be a t-shirt available at limpditkas.com soon. I'm going to have to get working on that. But yeah, there was not much to be taken away from this. I think, I was thinking this might be the win of, kind of just to avoid the unwinning, undefeated. What's the opposite of undefeated? The defeated season.
Yeah.
Winless season. I thought this was probably a good shot. I don't think this is necessarily the last shot, but this is a pretty good opportunity to get that win. They did not even come close. Now I've been joking about 0-17, but it's starting to look realistic now. Again, I say this every week, but we're trying to get the number 1 draft pick. That's the best thing that could come out of this season anyway. So we're cementing that, but it'd be nice to get at least one win at some point. I'm not so sure it's going to happen anymore. So every week I say it, but this is more than enough time spent on the Lions. When they win, I'll go on like a half-hour diatribe about, how awesome Dan Campbell is, Danimal Cannibal, how they triumph over adversity. But it might be not till next year before I have that long spiel about my Lions again. So I think we should start to wrap this show up. But I think before we get into that, I think we need to hear your upset special of the week.
Yeah, so I gave you 2 last week. I was 1 for 1, but that now evens me out since I missed the first week out of rustiness. I was like, it wasn't until I think I text Ryan and Smitty, I was just like, I never did an upset special because I'm an idiot and forgot I did that. So I was wrong. The football team did not show up. I thought they had it in them to beat Denver.
The football team of Washington, you're referring
yes,
to.
well,
Random football team.
No, that's their name. The football team.
Football team.
The football team. The football team.
I guess they own that. You're right.
They do. They own that. They really, at least they didn't, take a name that was a roller derby team's name. So I mean, they got that going for them.
We've got a lot to talk about. Tune into the Major League A-Holes podcast.
Tune into Major League A-Holes. So we're entering week 9. That puts me at what does that put me at then? 5 and 3.
That sounds right. I think 5 and 3 sounds right.
5 and 3 because I split 1 and 1.
You got to write these down.
Yeah, I know. I had it written down and didn't put in my notes. So this week is what I like. We got a classic. The match of Ohio is this week. The Bengals against the Browns. The Browns are 2.5 point underdogs. They are going to Cincy, but I don't think that's going to matter. They're going to be like at full strength this week.
They are. Okay, I wasn't sure about that.
Yeah. I checked it before I came on. They're going to be at full strength this week. They have the hierarchy listed. Chubb's back.
Baker Mayfield.
Baker Mayfield be there, easy for me to say. So I think that's going to be. I think that's the route to go. They're plus 120 right now. Cincy's a negative 140. Cincy's been playing really good football. They're gonna, if they keep up like this, I mean, they've got a decent attack through the air, and Joe Mixon's has been having a solid season. So, but you get, I think this is gonna come down to the wire, but I think Cleveland's gonna have a surprise win this week at Cincinnati.
Well, I have no interest in that game other than your upset special, so that might be one reason I'll actually.
Don't you love the color orange?
Yeah, orange and brown. It's fantastic.
One thing to note, just real quick, it was an interesting week because right now there's 2 pick'em games, which I haven't even seen happen at all yet this year. Because everything's been. We always talk about anything within 3 points is basically a pick'em game.
Yeah.
And that's usually who's ever the home team gets the advantage. But KC, they're giving the Chiefs respect to, they're giving the Chiefs Green Bay pick'em at Green Bay.
Oh, wow.
I don't even understand that. And then
Mahomes has looked very, very
mediocre. I'm sorry, at Kansas City. I apologize. At Kansas City.
Okay. Well, Mahomes is not. He doesn't look otherworldly like he has the previous 2 years. So he looks pretty mortal at this point. So I don't know what that is. the thing, the crazy shit he's always done just isn't working anymore. And I don't know if that's defenses across the National Football League have figured him out, or if his mojo is just wearing off, or what's happening. But it's a strange season for the Chiefs for sure. It's kind of hard to figure out what they're going to do each week.
Yeah, and then the Cardinals at the 49ers is also a pick 'em, and I think that must come off of how lackluster the Cardinals looked last weekend.
Boy, and that's just erasing their previous 7 wins.
I
in
know.
A row, and
that's what I say. So
strange, because San Francisco does not look good at all to me.
Yeah, I mean, they had to put up 33 to beat the Bears, but they looked lost in the entire first half of that game. So I don't know, but yeah, I thought it was interesting. I just thought it was worth noting. Right now, the current line I was getting off of CBS Sports was 2 pick'ems, which I have not seen happen at all this year. So
the NFL is a strange game; you never know. So unless you're a Lions fan, then you definitely know.
True.
Well, with that, I think we should call that an episode. You can catch us at limpditkas.com with all sorts of merchandise, all sorts of derogatory Michigan University or University of Michigan merchandise, plenty of Spartan, a lot of Tuck, Mel Tucker merchandise, some Cowboy stuff. We got plenty of same old Lions things over there. T-shirts, hoodies, mugs, t-shirt, stickers, whatever. So check that out at limpditkas.com. You can find us on social media at limpditkas, and you can find this podcast anywhere you'd like to find a podcast. So with that, I'm going to say this is Dagger Time. We out. Peace.
Peace.